Hello, everybody. Hello, Daniel. Hello, color-coded insignia. Darkon. Craney. Craney is coming in. What's up, gamers? What's up? Got Resident Evil Village. It's awesome. The environments are so detailed there. Yeah. I think they did a good job. I've never played it myself. It's not a silly game for me, but it looks really pretty. And gruesome, you know? Gruesome at the same time. How is everybody doing? It's been another pretty crazy week over here, and it's not letting up. Gonna be busy in the next part of the week too. Yeah, been oh, there's so much that happened. Let me start with today, okay? So been working the entire day, took like an early day off, so it was all nice and chill. Had dinner, then came up and put it on my PC, and immediately got hit with a blue screen. So I was like, "Oh shit, not today." Um, and then I did like a starter prepare, and it was all good. So here we are. So if you see the stream die at a certain point, that might be a likely reason why. So yeah, let's keep an eye out for that. What else has been happening? Oh, I've been making some good progress on the book, honestly. I'm pretty happy where it's going so far. Let's see. This is a stack that's already done. It's getting pretty chunky. So, what is it? 160 pages done. And it's literally just like, you see like the post-its on top, right? Just making notes, removing pages, writing a bunch of, like marking a bunch of stuff to make sure that like I reword stuff. So I think, what is it? Like 100 pages more? And then we should be good. Yeah, we're over the hump, which is awesome. Yeah, it's been going good so far. I've been basically putting my head down over the weekends and just being like, okay, let's hunker down, do as many pages as I can. So I think hopefully this weekend, like we'll have that done and I can start editing basically, like doing the final pass on like all the text, which should be good. And then after that, it will be on to the images and yeah, some other ideas that I've been playing around with. Hello, Wilson. Hello, Bodhi. Hello, Sheila. Blake Meyer. Awesome to have you all here. Hope you're all doing well. But yeah, just been chipping away at the book. I feel like on average it takes me like 10 minutes to get through like one page because I wanna make sure that I like tag everything that I need to do and also give myself already hints of how I need to rewrite or reword stuff so that once I do start typing it becomes like way easier. And yeah, then I spent doing like a couple of interviews for the people that we have for the team challenges. So we have our first meeting on Friday for the next team challenge that is coming up. We will hash out like when the next team challenge is gonna be in like the first couple of meetings. So if you're interested in participating, keep an eye out for that. We'll let you know as soon as we have like a date for it. The date currently, like we only have like an estimation, which is gonna be like next month or the month thereafter. And then hopefully we can like build back up to where we have like a continuous routine with the team challenges and get them back to full speed. So I'm pretty excited about that as well. Yeah, that's been going good. So Friday we have our first meeting for that. And then also, it's also the first time that we're actually working with someone on the workshop end. Like we're currently talking to like our first video editor, and we're sending out like the first workshop to be edited by someone else other than Karim as well. That hopefully will lay the foundation for more workshops in the future too, which is awesome. So yeah, lots of stuff in the works. Lots of spinning wheels, which is good. Yeah, lots of stuff in the works. What else is happening? Yeah, and then on the core side, like we've not really done that many things. I have been playing around with the idea of doing like an exclusive Q&A to the Discord, so you can send in your questions that you have about environment art or personal or whatever, and then I'll just go through them and answer them in like a live session. It didn't say you were live on Discord. Oh. Oh god, did the thingy fuck up again? Like the Discord event? Interesting. Well, let's see. Oh no. Yeah, seems like a Discord event like fucked up again. That's all good. We're just gonna ignore that. And I also have like a new server as well, which is like more on the nerdy backend side of things. But yeah, that will hopefully hopefully solve like a bunch of issues, but yeah, gonna be good. Can you review my Minecraft dirt house? Oh my god. First steps into game dev. I'm proud of you, man. Making your first dirt house. Appreciate it. Camera. Hello, hello. It's good to see you here. Hope you're doing well. Let's see. Okay. Let's see. Let me open up like all the people that we're going to review today. So for people that are new, here, like this is basically my weekly sort where I basically go through all the work that people have been posting and they can tag me whenever they want. And then I'll have a review and then see how we can improve upon it in the future. So I think we have 14 people today that have tagged up their work. So what I'm doing on my other screen is I'm having a look at like what people posted so that we can get some additional context. And then you can see on this screen that we're just going to be looking at like people's work one by one, and then we'll do some overpaints and stuff too. So yeah, if you have any questions in the meantime, you know, maybe someone else want me to review like their Minecraft dirt house as well, let me know. You know, that's why the chat is here. Okay, so we're gonna dive into it. Let's see, where do we start? I think let's start with Sanji, because last time we kind of skipped out on Sanji because he was just too late for the submissions. So let's have a look what happened. Let's see. So there's no... Okay, so there's like 2 questions. Let's see. Hey, thanks for the sub loop. Oh my god, what is my mouth today? Thank you for the sub, Luke. Christ. Going great today, I swear. I woke up this morning, wasn't really feeling like work, so hey. Maybe I should have listened to my body and took a day off. Cool. So let's have a look. So Sanji was basically giving us an update saying that added like a bunch of stuff, fixed the decals, changed the hotel name, basically giving us an update of like all the stuff that he did last time, which was like the 18th. So basically before like the other updates. So I don't know how up to date like all these updates are. Not sure why I hadn't subbed yet. That's all good. That's all good. Appreciate it nonetheless, Luke. Thank you so much for subbing. But Sanji in this post is asking if they should add cars to the marketplace from Quixel or add more street painting decals as well. For the street paint decals, so let's have a look. To me, like the street paint decals would probably be like a no. But I would just do more like street dirt instead. So instead of graffiti, like making sure that like you have like some dirt, some leaves, like some stuff. Maybe some decals that like break up like the surface of the road, right? Where you have like a patch of like different kind of concrete to maybe break things up. Some stuff on the edges of the road. Basically like stuff collecting along the borders of things. What I'm basically trying to outline is just that you can do like a whole lot more in terms of like the way that you treat like your different surfaces, because right now you do have like a little bit of decals here, right? But you need to make, like in my opinion, like you need to do more than that. Like I want to see like a bit more variation and breakup in like all the surfaces. You got like a base, right? So you kind of have like a mossy surface here. But I also just want to see like, let's say some leaves collecting, right? Leaves collecting. Maybe there's some like different kind of dirt here. Yeah. those details, like they really sell a scene and like make it not look and feel like 3D, right? And then you can do some cracks and some potholes and whatever you wanted to do. Especially if you do with them with like parallax occlusion mapping, those are going to look like pretty interesting. And I would basically treat like all the surfaces like that, where maybe like this guy has like a crack as well going on top of it. Just a little bit of surface breakup like here and there, right? That's what I would focus on. And then for the other question, for number 1, where you like wanted to add like cars, right? So let's just add it on here as well. If you want to, you can add more cars. I think you only need like 1 or 2. That's all good. So if you want to do that, yeah, add cars. That would be cool. I'm imagining like a car just like sitting in a parking lot here, and then maybe there's like one down the road. Right? So just having like a little bit of breakup, maybe there's like one like parked on like the side road here. What is the name of it? My god. The curb. You can kind of sprinkle those in, right? I think maybe in the background would definitely be a go-to. I'm not sure about this guy over here. Yeah, could be cool to add in there though. Could be cool to add in there. And then I think at that point, because I remember you saying that you already wanted to move on at a certain point, right? Like I think at this point, like I would do like the final bits, like the final pieces of polish, and then just keep moving on to like the next thing. And like I mentioned before, like go smaller, but go more detailed, right? Because I could put out, like I can point out like a lot more, but I'm very conscious that you didn't want to continue this for too much longer anymore. So I think just do like the quick wins, and then just like post it, and then just keep moving on to like the next thing, right? Because what you don't want to do is you don't want to keep working on this single scene and keep working on it for months and months and potentially years, and you're just like making incremental changes, right? Because the biggest changes that you're going to do, or like the biggest learnings that you're going to learn, is whenever you're in the beginning of a project and you're learning a whole bunch and you're taking in like a lot of tutorials, you're taking in a lot of information, right? Because at this point, like that phase is already long gone, and it's more about just like doing polish, but like the same sort of polish just across everything, right? So this is like very slow, whereas which is pretty normal, right? Like the last 10% of any project always goes super slow. So you kind of don't want to linger too long. Like you need to find a balance between like polishing it, but then also like moving on to the next thing as well. So yeah, focus on the quick wins and then just post and move on. That would be my recommendation here. Yeah, like again, like on this image here, like there's a lot that you can do with just like adding stuff here, right? Like blending the two surfaces where you have like a bunch of leaves on the floor and just like dirt buildup as well. Just blend like the sharp edges that you have between like the floor and the building itself, right? Whenever a situation like that gets created, we need to find a way to soften those spaces up. But yeah, that's what I would say. I would say best of luck with that as well. Yeah, quick wins, post, and then just move on. Like try to figure out like how to create like quick variations, right? Like vertex paint, decals, all that kind of stuff. You can add a lot of those things. Hello, people from the 3D world. Hello, Guillaume. Good to see you. Hello, Omar. Sorry for people that are just flooding in from the Discord. Apparently, there wasn't like an announcement for it. Or like Discord events just, I don't know, fucked up again. So. But here we are. Okay. Moving on from Sanji, and we're going to Rock Lee, I believe. Yeah. Rock Lee is currently working on practicing some level art and set dressing, but mainly composition. Let me know what you think. I definitely want to push it further. Okay. So, welcome, welcome. I think this is your first time posting as well, so that is awesome. I'm gonna leave you a hint for next time. Ask specific questions, because the more specific you ask your questions, the more specific your answers are going to be as well, right? So the better you get at asking those questions, the better I can help you with things that you're stuck with. Because right now it kind of feels like, oh, I'm trying this, but I don't really know what is going on, and I just want like some general stuff, you know? Which is fine, just for next time. Something to keep in mind as well. I mean, it doesn't need to be like specific questions, but like any sort of questions can help us both out. Then, one thing that I wanted to like really focus on is first, like Will is saying, it looks really good, especially because you mentioned that you wanted to practice level art and set dressing. And I think from the context that I gathered is that you haven't done a lot of scenes or like a lot of art yet, right? And like all of this is mega scans as well, if I'm not mistaken, right? Which there's nothing wrong with it. Like we kind of discussed that before in the voice channel too, where you can do that, but you kind of limit yourself to like what you're putting on show if you then put it on your portfolio, right? Like you said, what you're showcasing is, or what you're trying to showcase is composition. And this is where it gets really interesting for this project specifically. Because this background, I'm assuming, or it kind of has the look of being like one of those like YouTube background videos, right? One of those like lo-fi mixes. They always look really awesome, right? So I love the look of it. Like it looks really cozy, it looks really like pristine, like very chill, like just something nice to have in the background, right? However, what they don't do in these images is direct you towards a specific point in the image or have a specific composition built in, right? So what I'm expecting from you is that you use this as an inspiration, but then also realize that there's nothing really specific about the image on purpose, and then you put that in there, right? So as an environment artist I'm expecting that you take this, and then whenever you do your translation into 3D, and you're trying to build something up, I want to know, like, what are we focusing on? Right? Because composition, to me, is like you're composing all the elements in a scene to make it like pleasing to the eye. But I think most importantly for an environment artist specifically is you want to let it say something, right? Or you're directing people in like a very subconscious way towards like something, right? And that is a thing that I feel like you can definitely work on, right? Because this is like a pretty image, but it is just that, right? Like in terms of like composition, like you just literally took what's already here and then that's it, right? So you didn't really train yourself on the composition in that case either, because you literally just took the composition and one-to-one like duplicated it, right? Now, if for example, you were like, hey, I want my composition to focus more on like what is happening in this building, for example, then you can do like some interesting things where you've already changed the mood and the lighting a little bit. Okay, what if we then put like a light here and you kind of see like an orange light because the majority of the scene is blue? What if we then put like an orange light inside of here so that we pull the attention more towards like the building compared to the original image, right? That is something to think about whenever you are thinking about doing a specific scene for a specific goal, right? So think about the composition as in, yeah, what do you want us to look at or focus on, right? Because it is a one-to-one translation at the moment. Which is interesting, right? Because like if this is like the case where you really just wanted to train your composition, I don't think you did anything different than like the source inspiration, right? Like the source image itself, which kind of means that you didn't really focus on the composition, but you focused on how to get multiple asset packs and have them work in a consistent manner together, right? So there's still learnings that you did here. It's just not the learnings that you probably were expecting, right? So that is something to keep in mind for the next time. Would you include, Bodhi's coming in with a question here. Would you include 3D environments that you rendered in Blender and mostly use Quixel assets for in your environment? No, not really. The main thing that differs there is once you're in the industry, you can do whatever the hell you want, right? Like my last image that I made on my ArtStation, which is already quite a while ago, I was like, I'm not gonna do the game art pipeline, and I'm just gonna put like a scene that I made in Blender, and I'm just gonna render it with like Eevee, right? I still made the assets and like the environment myself, but I was so done with just like the whole pipeline. But in my case, like I'm not putting stuff out there anymore to like really flesh out my portfolio, right? So if you're looking for a position in the games industry, I would honestly focus on what the games industry requires from you, and that is game engine experience, where you also show that you can do stuff yourself rather than only creating like a composition with Quixel assets, right? Because also from like let's say you do get hired for a position that only uses Quixel Megascan assets and only requires you to like put them in a scene. That is such a precarious position to be in as an artist that I don't even want to recommend that. If there are jobs that allow you to do that, that is like a solid like career path, because I don't think so. Yeah, it's a good question though, Bodhi. What do you think? So let's see. We kind of talked about like the composition, and that this image is just like a one-to-one translation from like the composition, right? So in the list that you said, where you were talking about like level art and set dressing, which somewhat confusing, have a lot of overlap, right? Depending on what studio you work for and all that stuff. So you definitely did train that. Like you're definitely thinking about like how to compose the assets and all that kind of stuff, because the assets are also different, right? So there is some good stuff that you learned here for sure. So in terms of level art and set dressing, this looks quite nice, right? There's still like lots of opportunities to do like all the details. One major thing that I'm kind of missing is road markings, right? So having like the road markings going down the street, going down the side, having like a bike lane, all those kind of things are like really missing at the moment. And then also thinking about like where these pillars like go into the floor is usually on like the sidewalk, right? So you would usually have like the sidewalk goes off into a street like this, and then like this pillar goes into the sidewalk here. You probably have like, I don't know, like a pedestrian crossing over here, something like that. That's where like the base logic of what makes a street comes in, right? So yeah, I think that's honestly like the biggest thing that I can throw out there. Not train, road markings. Because that is something that as soon as you see a street, like you see the markings as well, and if you don't have them, the street just looks really off, right? And you can tell that from this image as well. I'm honestly such a sucker for like anything that makes something like this feel logical. It's so fun to me, like especially when you think about like warehouses and stuff, like the amount of like logic and the amount of like signage that there is like on the floor to like direct you in certain areas, and like areas where you have to wear like protective equipment or not. Like it's really interesting. Yeah, definitely pay attention to that. And then yeah, there's definitely some gains to be made in like the decal department as well. Like once you have like a curb, like it's just nice to see like sewer grates, all that kind of stuff come in, potholes, drainage holes, all those kind of things, right? Like the road fundamentals, or like the road logic. Currently missing. So that would be like an easy win, right? So you can kind of see that here. Like there's a lot of road markings. See, so you have like the full lines, like the stripes. You have like a stop line here. A lot of cool stuff that you can do with that. But yeah, best of luck, Rock Lee. Yeah, keep pushing it. Oh wait, before we go, be aware of textile density. I just saw that when we were like zoomed in before. Yeah, basically you have like really nice like textures. I mean, this is also like geo as well on top of it, so it makes it like look more detailed. But for example, the bike is like really high res, and then like the texture right next to it is like really low res. So you gotta make sure that you find ways that you can solve that as an artist and make everything look consistent between everything. Yeah. Best of luck. Looking forward to the next updates. I'm gonna go over to Thomas after we have a look at the question in the chat. Bodhi saying, I have some older scenes, but I thought maybe they were good to show the composition and the set dressing. But there's also not much breakdowns and such, so I keep them in a different folder. Glad to see you on Twitch. Hey, hello from Twitch. Yeah, we've been multi-streaming for a while now, which is great. I like it. Who knows what we'll do with that in the future. But yeah, Bodhi's saying that you have like a bunch of those older scenes. I feel honestly, if you have a lot of them, right? So let's say if you have like a sequence of like, let's say like 3 to 5 of those scenes, then maybe what you could do is you can do them as like composition sketches or composition explorations and kind of bundle them together. Because then it's like, oh, I see that you're also doing a lot when it comes to like, you're trying to explore like new ways of making a composition and set dressing, right? There is still value in it. It's just, I feel like those, the way that I kind of look at it is if you look at like the concept art world, right? Those composition and like set dressing exercises, they're more like sketches compared to like the full marketing art or the full concept art, right? That's kind of the way that I look at it. Where if you really put your head down, you can build a scene within a day. right? Or like, I don't know, maybe even shorter. Like, wasn't there? Didn't the team from Quixel actually have like I think they called them like 90 days or something like that, and they had like 90 days to make as many scenes that they could just by using like Quixel and like all that stuff. It's really cool to have a look at, and like it's kind of what you're talking about as well. But obviously for them, it was more as like, it's cool to do as an artist, but also it promotes the product that they're making at the same time, and it gets them more familiar with what they're building, right? So it kind of hits like more than just like making a product, or more than just like making a portfolio piece. But I feel, what was it? Like a lot of people made like 4 or 5 scenes in like 90 days or something like that. Which is probably like on top of their normal workload and all that kind of stuff too, right? So yeah. Yeah, they look so awesome. Yeah, they really do. Hello, Andrea. It's good to see you here. Hope everyone is doing okay today. Yeah. Yeah, I'm doing good. Thank you, thank you. I hope you're doing well as well. Yeah. It's yeah, it's one of those things like I'll be fully transparent. The way that I'm like, the reason why I'm also so hesitant about it is because I don't necessarily want people to see it as like a shortcut of making like full environments, and then kind of thinking that that is like what environment art is about, right? Because yeah, it kind of is, but you also need to do like a whole bunch of modeling and a whole bunch of like on the fly thinking and like being creative with what you have and all that kind of stuff too. So you need to display like all those other you need to display like all those other skills as well, on top of being good at like composition and stuff too. I miss being a part of the stream. Life just gets in the way too much. Oh, are you busy with a lot of stuff then? Hopefully it's good. Especially the Friday streams. Yeah, it's been a while since we did the Friday streams. Yeah. There's actually like a couple of people that reached out to me of like, oh, like I kind of miss those streams, you know? Like, yeah, me too. Me too. There's a part of me that does miss them. But yeah, I don't know. It is interesting. 4-day work week, you know? Come on. Give us a 4-day work week so I can do more work on a Friday. You know, I can just stream the entire day. Or get rid of NDAs and then I can just stream like the entire time. That would be good with me too, but I think that's gonna happen. Okay. Thomas. Let's see. Thank you for the feedback. It's been extremely helpful. I adjusted the lighting briefly, but I have been experimenting a lot with the idea of noise versus rest. I'm gonna experiment with some more. Okay. I think I'm going in the right direction in regards to noise versus rest and the interest of contrast that I'm creating. I honestly, I don't think you were necessarily asking for feedback. I might have forgotten to like remove the tag. So we're just gonna keep this like pretty brief, right? I would say that you do have a lot of contrast right now, but it's too dark overall. I know that this is like a balancing act that seems like it's never ending. But yeah. Come on. Keep going. Okay. So it's too dark at the moment. For that, look into some references for games and see how they do it, right? And then also, something that's really interesting is I was really thrown off by like the scale of like the character versus the environment. So those are like 2 quick things that I'll throw out here really quickly. I think honestly, it's more that I was expecting like these details to be like really tiny in comparison to a person, right? Because if you're thinking about it, we're gonna zoom in a little bit here. If you're thinking about like one of these guys is like the size of a bolt, then we're talking about a bolt that is like the size of my hand. Right? Like if you compare that to like the character down there, like that bolt would be the size of my hand, which is really weird. So you kind of have to keep into account like the human scale, which honestly should have been like a thing that we would have recommended to you in the beginning, and probably should do more often, is get like a human-sized mannequin in there to see how big and like how small you're creating like all the assets too. So yeah, keep track of humans and like real-life size, because some of these elements can definitely scale them down to make them more intricate and give them like a proper scale compared to a human that's right next to it, right? So I think for you, like inspiration can come from something like Star Citizen. There's a bunch of people that play it on the regular, so I'm sure that you can find like some really cool like inspiration and ref from that. Does anyone know where I can get some good decal images? Textures.com is probably a good one. I know that they changed like their licenses, so I'm not up to date with what they did and like how bad it is, but yeah, that would be like my go-to probably. But yeah, thank you for sharing your work, Thomas. Again, I don't know if you tagged yourself to be feedbacked, so that's why I'm kind of keeping it brief. You have to pay 13 a month. Yeah, I mean, could be. I don't know. Like I've barely used textures.com, honestly. Like the way that I do it is I have a lot of images now. Right? Like if I would need like some good decals, I would probably like look into my own like asset library now. So I'm kind of like not really that big of a help on it. It also depends on like what images you need, right? What could be, this requires a little bit of work, but like you could potentially go to like stock image websites and you could then like just strip them out yourself and like recreate like parts of the map based on like just a base color, right? It kind of depends on like what you're looking for and what you're gonna get, but yeah. Olaf is next. Do share. No, they are mine. I was actually thinking about like potentially setting up like a reference site, but we'll see. Or like not a reference site, that sounds like way too big. But just like folders that are like publicly available to access, and then people can have a look at some references, but Photoshop got rid of normal map creation. You can recreate like normal maps in different ways as well. Like you can, again, it depends on what you need. But you can recreate like normal maps in like Substance Designer. Again, all depends on what you need. Guillaume is saying this environment is gorgeous. Oh yeah, we're gonna be looking at the environment from I think it's Zaim, right? Because we keep flipping back at it. So we're gonna look at Zaim's work in a little bit. Yeah, first we're gonna start out with Olav. This one looks like a street I known. Oh, okay. Okay, so what do you think about it, Guillaume? Like, are you getting like some vibes from the street? Like, are those like recognizable vibes that you're getting? In the meantime, let's have a look. So Olav is working on an environment inspired by Watch Dogs 2 for 2 weeks now, and I'm starting to like it. That is awesome. Also, let me do a quick check. Didn't you work on like a medieval environment before, Olav? Oh, boo. Can I not search by people anymore? What? Oh, okay. Oh. Oh no. No, I'm wrong. Completely wrong. Maybe too clean. Yes. I see decals. It's just Denmark. I would add a canine dejection. Is that just like dog urine? Is that what you're talking about? That's like the most fanciest word that I've ever read in my life. Let's see. So Olav is asking. Sorry, I just got distracted there. So. You laugh so hard. Yeah, I'm honestly not sure what that means, and I'm also afraid to like look it up. So I'm just sitting here in my bubble of like unknowingness. But Olaf has been working on this Watch Dogs 2 inspired environment for 2 weeks now, and I'm starting to like it. There's one thing that I think that looks too cartoony. I have no idea why, but if you guys could tell me how I could make it more realistic looking, and maybe how to improve the lighting somewhat as well. So I feel like let's do this together. What do you all think like could be like improved to make this more realistic, right? Would be kind of interesting to hear like people's thoughts. We already had a thought from Guillaume, where Guillaume was kind of bringing up a good point of maybe it feeling like too clean, and I do agree with that as well. So ground looks too clean. Just gonna make this a nice picture for Olav. So definitely the ground is too clean. Break up the textures a bit. Okay, yeah. In what way do you mean? Like, are we thinking about like vertex painting, different materials and all that kind of stuff? Or are you thinking in a different way? Color code. Make some human tracks. The ground looks too clean. I would love to see darker shadows and more grunge where the surfaces meet. Both at the bottom walls, etc. Yep. That is awesome. So we're doing blending between walls and floor. Maybe add layer materials or vertex painting. Yep, definitely vertex painting to break up like the textures, right? Cool. Where are we gonna add this? You can basically apply that on like all the textures though, I'll be honest. I think that's a good shout. So that's the beauty about like having like one master material, right? If you then add vertex painting to that master material, you can then just like paint like material variations on like all the surfaces in your scene if they use like the same material setup, right? So on all materials for more variation. I think that's a good shout. I love to see darker shadows and more grunge. So darker shadows, I think that's kind of hinting towards like the lighting, right? Where we're gonna add a section here about lighting. Darker the shadows. If we stick with lighting for just a moment, but keep adding your suggestions. Like, these are awesome. So darker shadows, definitely a good suggestion. I'll add one where like your light currently is like overexposed. Like it gets really tricky to see like where surfaces, like for example here, where you see like a green surface and a red surface, but like the light is so intense on those surfaces. Oh, sorry. That in this spot, you can't really see really where like one surface begins and another one ends, right? Because they're so exposed that they both kind of blend into like the same sort of white value, right? So the lighting is a bit overexposed. You can definitely tweak that as well. Which also helps with just like how bright the whole scene feels, right? And like how contrast-less the scene feels. So that's kind of hinting at like what's happening here, right? So more contrast. Will it say in more decals? Does that go in line with like just the surfacing in general, where you just want to see like more directed like areas of dirt, like here, for example? And let's see, are the trees a bit small? Yeah, I feel like honestly with the trees, I would honestly just pick like a mega scan tree. Like trees are freaking ridiculously hard to make look really good. I would honestly not touch them with like a 10-foot pole on like any first project ever. Like, no way. So save yourself the hassle and replace them with like mega scan trees. The reason why is I would rather see you focus on an individual skill on like an individual project basis, right? So what does that mean? Like for this one, we're just focusing on material surfacing, for example, right? So you're going to be focusing on the texturing of things. And then the next time, if you wanted to do like foliage, like you make a project that is purely foliage, right? So that you can only focus on that. And then you kind of build up your skills like in a very consistent manner, right? Yeah, make it easy on yourself, replace the trees with mega scans, make them look good, and just focus on what the core of the scene is going to be, and that's the surfacing, right? The detailing, like how the logic of the space works. Yes, and also to add wear to the materials. Yep. That is cool. So ground to clean, so we can... That can be like vertex paint again. Plus decals, right? You already got a couple of them. It's good. You can definitely add more of them too. During the day with no external lights, I think that we expect more harsh directional light, but the surfaces are very bright, so I'm not sure what the bounce lighting would do. Yeah, that's where like references come in, right? I would have to look at them too. There's also like eye adaptation that we kind of need to have in mind, and then also what you want to do with the scene yourself, right? Because one thing that I completely just glanced over is that this is a Watch Dogs 2 inspired scene. And I've only played the game for a little bit, but I do feel that the light in those games, especially in cities, was also like pretty bright. So that might be like a deliberate choice as well. But you kind of have to then still balance it in a way where you're not like overexposing like areas, right? Capnote is saying, I feel like the floor bricks might be a bit too big and the wooden planks a bit too small. Okay. Yeah, that is so tricky to decide, right? Like, because you can get like wooden planks in like any sort of size. I don't think that the bricks are too big. It's kind of hard to tell. The reason why it is also hard to tell is because like we have a door here, right? But we also have a door here. And they are like two very different sizes. So this actually brings up a good point of working with like real world sizes. Because you kind of want to keep those things like consistent, right? So double check the real world size of everything. Sort of like Captain was saying, where the floor bricks, they might be a bit too big. It kind of depends, because here we have like the same sort of door, right? And this feels like a pretty big door, and like the texture of the bricks kind of fits that one as well. But there's also a door here, which is like sizably different. And then the bricks feel like a tiny bit too big. Right? So I can see where you're coming from. But it's hard to determine currently what the best course of action would be. I mean, what I would do is I would try to create like more consistency between like the different sizes of the doors, right? And then probably shrink down the brick pattern to see if that helps. Yeah, real world size is super important. Super important. So this actually brings up like a previous point. Add mannequins to your scene, right? This is a huge help whenever you're doing something that is based on the real world. Having a mannequin in your scene can help you gauge like what you need to do when it comes to your scale and your size. So, let's see. Did we miss a couple ones? Layer materials. I feel that's also a good option. I would go with like vertex paint just because it's like way simpler to set up. Also AO decals if you're going with overexposed lights. I wouldn't. I mean, we had a workshop on that specific thing where someone used AO decals. I've never used them myself. I usually just stick with like just the base lighting, because especially if you want to do like AO decals, you're gonna have to set up so many of them, like for every surface, that it almost becomes like not worth to do that, right? Like in this case, it feels like you're trying to patch something up like with a band-aid rather than solving like the core issue, right? So I feel like, yeah, turning down the lighting, definitely the course to go here. A couple more things to add, and just from like a logical perspective, and if like the main component of your scene is going to be this huge like brick floor, right? Look at how these streets are laid out and how specific some of the patterns can be, because you can do a lot of really cool stuff with just simple UV mapping. So what I like is that you have this strip here, right? Which can then also be used to demarcate like certain areas. And you can kind of use it as like a trim to go around like certain surfaces. And you can almost use that as like, okay, so here's the border of the building that is definitely going to have like different bricks, right? And then you can kind of use that as a trim that kind of goes all the way around like the buildings themselves, especially the planters and all that kind of stuff too. Another example here is you use the same set of bricks, right? But maybe a single row. So let's say I'm literally just taking this little section, I'm duplicating that as like geometry, and then I'm building a trim around this hole here, around this like manhole cover thing that's happening, right? And then with like some proper UVing, you can make it look like you just have like those bricks and they all just like line up to the surface to make like this cover feel like it's actually built into the floor rather than just slapped onto a tileable, right? you always kind of have to go like the extra mile to sell those things because they sell like what we're so used to in reality, right? You get so much cool stuff out of this. Also, think about the flow of water, right? If this is just like a flat plane, like where's the water gonna go? Usually these areas, they kind of have like a little bit of just like a curve, like directing the water to like the main surface, and then it goes to like a drainage hole at the end somewhere, right? So kind of build that slight slant into your terrain, just to, I kid you not, this is gonna bring it to like a whole new level, and you can basically do that on like all the buildings as well. Like think about like how buildings are in real life, like where the ledges are, like how those ledges are supported, like make them feel like real buildings, right? Because now what is happening is that you have a block that just has like a tileable slat on top of it, whereas like in real life what you would see is you would see like little trims around these edges, right? And this would be just like a single trim that kind of goes somewhere there. But like everything would be kind of finished in a specific way and manufactured in a way that this makes sense, right? And that's gonna, once you start doing those little things, that is gonna take your work from looking like 3D to something that actually might be believable in real life as well. But you gotta pay attention to those little areas. For example, this like frame, window frame, that's probably gonna have like an edge going around it as well. Right, so you would have like a wooden frame that kind of goes all the way around it. Just to support the idea of like, oh, someone actually built like a frame around it and then had like the inner frame and the outer frame like coming together, right? Yeah, so something to think about. Like stuff like this little lip, there's a lot you cannot imagine. Like this is a lot to the believability of this thing actually being constructed by someone in real life, right? Like this little lip over here, sorry, it was hidden behind the chat as well. Like this little lip is awesome. It does so much to sell the idea that this building was actually built by someone who is building buildings in real life. So that's the last thing that I'll add is thinking about how something is constructed. And look up references for that too. References are key for all of this. Like honestly, like all the stuff that we said today, like all the things that I bring up where you have like drainage holes and like all those things is because I looked at like references for like 1,000 times for this kind of stuff, right? So it's like imprinted in my brain now. And I pay a lot of attention to like these silly, stupid details whenever I'm out. Yep. Okay. Yeah. Thanks so much for helping as well. Like that was really cool to see like so many people coming in with different suggestions, and that was good. If we have an opportunity, we should do that more. But yeah, thanks Olav. Thanks for sharing your work. On to Omar. Omar's next up in the lineup. I think this is going to be like relatively quick, right? Playing around with lights and the camera placement to get more interesting lights and shadows. And at this point, I'm not sure what I can improve further on. Does it look like it's time to post? So basically, main question is time to post, right? That is honestly a question that you can only decide, right? You need to be comfortable with that, but we'll dive into it. Oh, we got a sad horse in the chat. Going to see that horse. Hello, Swan Boy. Hello, Omar. Hello, Arout1. Omar, first of all, great job on this, right? We talked about it last time as well. But great job on this. I like the little improvements that you've done. Just looks really nice. The main thing, honestly, that I'll say is the same thing that I said last time. It's probably just like this edge. I don't know. Like, it might be me, like, overly focusing on that, right? Let's see. Let's zoom in, actually. Yeah, how would you... Let's see. Oh, God. Have I missed mine? Nope. I think you're still up. Still up in the lineup. Actually try to rebake the whole pedestal. Oh, God. Wait. Rebake? Is that like a unique texture on it? I thought that was a trim. Or I should say, I made the assumption that that was a trim. Oh, interesting. That's like a unique thing. Dang. Oh, it used to be a trim. Okay. I'm currently looking at some like examples, but this is going to be so tricky to find. No, that's a new one. I know that like there's a lot of well, the first thing that comes to mind for me is like those Moroccan tiled like basins, right? Or like shrines that have like lots of beautiful like tiled like work around them, but it's so tricky to find like a specific edge. Pretty much it. It's good. Yeah, I'm honestly not gonna find one that quick. Maybe I'm just wrong. You know, this could be a thing as well where I'm imagining that you have like a full brick on the edge, but this could also be a case where the tiles are so shallow that you just have to make them in this way. I'll post a ref in 1 sec. Yeah. If you have ref and this looks good to you, then that makes sense, right? It might just be my lack of references in my head currently. Yeah, I think the rest of it, that depends on you, right? Like what you still want to do. I think it's great. I am honestly, even though this is my suggestion, right? Like if I had to pick like what I'm more of a fan of, I am probably more a fan of this above all the rest of the images, because it's just so nice and clean, right? So like this guy is just like, this is focused on what you did. Where, for example, this guy, it becomes like really noisy and it's really hard to tell. So even though like there's a cool idea behind it, and I think the execution works well, I think in comparison, I would still prefer like a clean version where you can really tell all the nice stuff that you put on top of it, right? Because this becomes like really tricky to read. Ref posted. Oh yeah. Yeah. Okay. So let's see. Let's bring it up on screen as well. So we got like a ref over here. Yeah, pretty much it, right? So interesting that these are like individual tiles as well. They're not like one full tile. They're like puzzle pieces. Yeah, that's cool. So I think this becomes this is just like up to you, right? I think if you're running in circles with it, what I would do is leave it alone for like a couple of days and just do something completely else, or just don't do art and then come back to it, right? That's the way that I would do it. Oh, I think I completely missed what you were saying, Andrea. Andrea is still looking for the job, but every day working on skills and portfolio building. But nice to be here while I do some UV mapping. Hell yeah. UV mapping. Hello, Scott. It's been a while. Hope you're doing well, buddy. So yeah, I think if you're ever stuck with something and it kind of becomes like really tricky to see like the forest from the trees, right? Or whatever the saying is, then just you gotta take a step back for like a couple of days and just let your eyes like rest and then hopefully come back with like an objective view on things, right? Or you just do what you're doing here, right? And you just give people like the choice and you just say like, hey, I got these 5 images. You can only pick one, right? And then see like what all the favorite ones are from like different people, just to get like a more objective idea. At this point, whenever I see a house or a building, I wonder how it will be built. It's hard putting the brain on some rest without wondering the 3D version of things. Both a blessing and a curse. Yes, 100%. 100%. There's so many things that I look at now where I'm like, oh, that's cool. Oh, I wonder if I can use that knowledge anywhere. Just goes in like the visual library. Yeah. It looks great. Love all the details. Yeah. But this is probably like my favorite shot. So nice and clean. It showcases like the beautiful details that you've done so well. Just, yeah. It's more straightforward and it's more stereotypical in terms of presentation, right? But there's probably also a good reason because it's so clean. Yeah. You could also play it in a way where like that is like your main presentation, and then you do like one full thing for like the whole knife, right? Have that as like your main shot. Do like a couple of detail shots in this sort of lighting where it's like everything's clean, and then you just have like alternative versions, right? And then you pick like the couple shots that you like. The other shots are there because I didn't only want to have one. Yeah, you can do like a couple of shots from this, right? And then just go into the breakdowns. I would honestly focus on like whatever you think is the best, like the absolute best, and just cut out the rest, right? Because the other shots, if you start including them and they're not as good as the main shot that you're pulling up, then it immediately becomes a question of like, okay, why is it in there, right? So only post the best stuff. Yeah. So again, awesome. I would say best of luck with trying to decide that. There was Shelby 1KC. I've been looking into trim sheets and trying to wrap my head around it, and it's great how versatile you can make them. I want to start a project soon to practice making them. Oh yeah. Like, I mean, trim sheets is how I made like my entire like medieval scene, right? Like they are super versatile and you can build like a bunch of stuff on top of it. Like they're so versatile, so useful. And yeah, at a certain point, it just becomes fun because you have the texture already and you can just like build new stuff with it. And it's just like, oh, I need a card. Okay, cool. Oh, I want to make another card. Okay, cool. And you don't have to like go back and like make a high poly, make a low poly, blah, blah, blah. It is more demanding on like the technical side of things though. So like you have to set up more things to make it look as good as a unique asset. But once you got it set up, then it's so versatile in the way that you can use it. Let's see who's next. Darkon is next. Darkon just has a quick update to share, I think. Before that, let's have a look at Andrea's question. I have a question for you and the chat if they want to answer. Okay, yeah, this would be cool. I think we have some people that have been in 3D as well for quite a while. So the question is, you've been doing this for a long while now. Do you still feel like you have the love and passion for game dev environment art, or do you feel the novelty faded? I mean, the novelty has definitely faded, right? It's more it becomes more like a profession, but that doesn't mean that I have lost the love and the passion for what I'm doing. It just the milestones and the signposts just kind of change into something else, right? Because in the beginning, for example, when I joined, I was like, oh, I want to get to senior, right? And then I got senior and I was like, oh, I want to get to art director. And then I was trying to chase that goal. And now the goals are like completely different, where they're more focused on, I don't want to only make art, but I also want to teach a lot of other people art. And it kind of turned into that a bit more. While I'm also still doing like game dev stuff, and like I'm doing the way that I kind of set up my quote unquote life now is that I focus on art at work, and then I come home and I focus on management and setting up my own business and helping other people and all that kind of stuff. So I have the two like pretty much like separated at this point, which is nice because like before, what I ran into a lot is that I was doing art for 8 hours a day, and then I came home and I was doing art for another 4 hours. And after a long while of doing that, like even though you're doing different things, like you're still doing art. Like it's still related to each other and it's still picking the same part of your brain. Whereas now I can come home and I can kind of shut off like my creative brain and I turn into like my analytical side of my brain, because I'm doing a lot of like back-end stuff and automation and like organization, all that kind of stuff. Which I like too, like kind of diversifying a little bit more. That's probably the best way to say it. Whereas, yeah, now it's not only about the art, it's also allowing other people to do the art in the future, right? So that's where like the love and the passion kind of like morphed. I would say that like if we want to separate it from like, do I still love working in games? Like I feel like that's been like pretty stable. The only thing that like really changed a lot is just like the public's perception of games and the games industry as a whole has become like so soured and so judgmental like in the last couple of years. That's a side that I really don't like, but it also doesn't affect me on a day-to-day basis. Like that is something that I can just shut off by just not going on Twitter, right? Or not clicking on the videos that I don't want to see about it. So that's like pretty easy to like compartmentalize. Was there meant to be a novelty? Oh, shit, Scott. Can't say that. There needs to be a beautiful honeymoon period in the beginning, you know? But I feel like everyone kind of goes through their phases, right? And there's obviously like, there's periods where I was just like, oh God, like it's really tough at work. And then also like I was doing a lot of outside of work too. And it just becomes like really stressful. But then there's also like really beautiful periods where like you ship your first project or you ship like another project. And then you get to see like the excitement that the people have when playing it, and then you get to celebrate that with like the people that you've worked with for a couple of years. Like the payoff in games is so beautiful, right? Because everyone's working on like this dedicated thing for like X amount of years, and then after a certain point, like all that work just coalesces into like this one big thing that then just gets like thrown out into the games in like the world, basically, not the games industry. And then it's no longer yours. It's like what people think about it now, right? Like you did the best that you could, ideally, and then now it's no longer yours. And I feel like that's like very beautiful. The same happens with like portfolio pieces too, right? Where you tinker and work on something for so long and you kind of show it to like a select amount of people, but then at a certain point it's just out there in the world and it belongs to the people. Light bulbs are kind of mid. I wasn't born before the light bulb was invented, but I still haven't lost the novelty. Light bulbs are kind of mid. Mike P is saying, I've been working as a 3D artist for a couple of years now, and I still feel the need to create more stuff. Yeah, I think that's pretty recognizable. Pretty normal. I think what is a good question? I mean, this is a question that I ask myself, is that what are you doing the work for? Right? What's the purpose of that work that you're doing? And if that question has like a good answer, then you're on a good track. Because I feel that like just doing, I'm not saying this is you, by the way, Mike. Like, I feel like I've seen this a couple of times where like people just do the work because that's what they're used to. And now it's just like, oh, it's a habit, but they kind of lost why they're doing it because they got in, right? I didn't get the joke. No, no, just straight over my head. Lots of cool and lots of kill me. Yeah, definitely is. Definitely is. There's lots of ups and downs. Like there's a reason why it's oftentimes referred to as like when you're working on like a development, like you're literally in the trenches, right? There's a reason why yeah, why that is there. Working for 15 years outside of games and art, I feel like there should be a certain novelty to the fact that you're getting to do something you're passionate about, because not everyone is, in my opinion. Yeah, that's a good thing, but like you that's such a difficult one. Because I am the firm believer that like everyone can kind of do what they're passionate about. But it's not necessarily like an outspoken career path like game artist is now, right? Which is also like relatively new as well. Um and especially with like I'm looking at like an artist bubble, right? Especially with like all the opportunities that we have now. Like there's so much that you can really make yours and you get to make it like your passionate thing. I don't know. Feels so weird to say, but like I feel like there's also like a lot of people that just get stuck and they're fine with being stuck. And then it's just like, yeah, but if you never work for something, then you're never gonna feel happy about like doing something that you're passionate about, right? So it's like, I don't know. I don't know how to consolidate those two things. There's a part of me where I'm like, I knew how hard it was to like get into the games industry, right? And I know that it's still hard. But I also know a ton of people that were just not willing to put in the work and they're just doing something else that they're not necessarily happy about, but they also had the same opportunity. I don't know. But just the fact that you worked outside of games, though, that gives you like a good comparison point. I did like a bunch of jobs, not full-time jobs for the most part, but like I've done like a bunch of like student jobs, work experiences. Like I was working every weekend of my life, basically. Like, so yeah, the comparison between the two, where if you do like the dishes like every weekend compared to doing like art, it's pretty cool. But also, like it's just wears off over time though. Like you just get used to it, right? Like with everything, like you just get used to it. Deep philosophy with him, new stream idea. I do love this discussion though, but like sometimes it's so hard, right, to consolidate some of these ideas. Yeah, especially because like yeah, there's so many people that I was surrounded by at that point where like maybe at that point in time in their life it wasn't the right move yet, but now they're also regretting not putting in more work. So it's like it's almost like you need a podcast. Oh god, you need a pod. If we're gonna set up a podcast again, I need a second person. I'm not just gonna do like a solo podcast. Those are really weird. I do not like those at all. It's a good question though. Yeah. So short answer. You get used to it. But yeah, like the love and the passion just morphs into something else, I think. At least in my way of thinking. Get the masks. Oh my god, are we going back to that idea? That would be so good. Like I've said this to like a number of people in like voice chat as well, like when I'm just chilling in our community. And I want to have like this one day of the year where like everyone's anonymized, right? Like everyone's just wearing random masks. It has like a voice transmuter or whatever, and like NDAs don't apply anymore. Right? Like, wouldn't that be awesome? Like, you can just talk about like all the stuff that you've been keeping in for like years, if not decades for some people. Like the canceled projects that you worked on, like the unreleased games that you worked on, like the weird stuff that you had to do, like the yeah. Oh, that would be so cool. Beyond Bohemian Grove. Oh my god. But if you do it while solo, have questions coming in and talking alone in a room. Yeah, I kind of did that at a certain point. Like there was like AMA Sunday, which I did for quite a while, where people just could like send in questions and then just going through them. I always like having someone with like a different opinion on those things though. Would be so cool. But like I said in the beginning of the stream, like I've been thinking about that exact like setup where I just do that, but then exclusive to the Discord. Like I would be willing to play around with that idea again, because they're fun. Okay, but thank you so much for the question. Keep asking those questions if you want while we move on to Darkon. Darkon, let's see. Gonna keep on tweaking for this week. Awesome. I tried adding a bit more floor material details, and I wanted to add some cavity dents on the top, what I have now, but I'm not sure if I'm hurting the previous look. Should I revert back to my previous material? Honestly, in the grand scheme of the scene, I don't think you're gonna see any of it. Right? Because like these things are like so detailed. Like I'm honestly 100%, like I'm just being truthful here. I don't know what you added. Because these large things were here already, but I'm not sure what actually has been added. Just in a way as like, I know that you did stuff, right? I'm not saying that you didn't, but it's more as like the visual difference is like, at this point, it's so minor that I can't even see the differences. So yeah, I think that's a no. You can just keep the ones that you have and like maybe keep building on top of it if you really want to, right? But like that's more your choice at this point. It's definitely hard to see. Yeah, so this is actually a good example of like how far do you go before you're like just doing like these minute little things that no one's ever gonna see in any of the screenshots that you're gonna post, right? Because I'm also not sure, like let's say if you have this image, is that gonna be an image that you're gonna put on ArtStation? Maybe not. I think something like this looks more impressive than having like a zoomed in shot of like the floor, right? And if you're then spending like a whole bunch of time adding details to that specific floor, then it might be a little bit of wasted time, right? And the effort might be spent better somewhere else. So, number one, no need to revert. No need to revert. And then number two. Let's see. Number two, the question there is, any tips on portfolio presentation on ArtStation? Any examples of excellent environment art portfolios I can see or recommend as a reference? I'm gonna throw this one to the chat as well. Like, do you have like some favorite artists? Oh, no shit. We can't do that. We can't post links. Damn it. Oh, that sucks. So scrap that. What I will say is if you're looking for like portfolio presentation inspiration, go check out like all the portfolio reviews that I've done. I think in the last session we actually had some that were like really high quality. So just have a look at those and see what my feedback is to them. You don't have to watch like all of them, right? I think just the latest one could be like really interesting to get like a bunch of notes. Because honestly, for the most part, I go over like a lot of the same things like every session, just to really drive home what I'm thinking, right? So yeah. Check out the folio reviews. Going to be a lot of information in there to help you. Yeah. Thank you, Darkon. Thanks for posting and letting it update. Mario saying, sick environment. Love it. Great composition. High frequency, high intensity. Not so much relaxed zones, but very striking. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, especially the walls. They're really busy. But I mean, that's the design of things, right? It is cool though. It is nice the way that it's balanced between like the floor and then like the sides. It's cool. So yeah, great stuff, Darkon. Next one up, we have Joe Bates. Maybe have a just chatting for the first 30 minutes before a whip or project review, because those convos are so much fun. Yeah, like honestly, like I like those convos as well. Right, especially if we have them like in between like these sessions. I love them. But yeah, like these sessions are like pretty time sensitive as well, where we've had sessions where it's like 25 people and it takes like 4 hours to get through all of them, which is probably the longest one that I've did. So yeah, I mean, I can get better at time management as well. You know, I'm just making up excuses here, but it's a good idea. It's a good idea. Oh, sorry, Darkon. Would it be cool to use Unreal Engine sequencer for the video presentation? Yeah. The thing is, if you're doing the video sequence, then I would find, this is going to be so annoying because we're going to talk about the water again. The only thing that is basically movable in the entire scene is the water, right? So if you're doing a video sequence, I kind of want to see like the water like ripple or like steam or something like that. And then that needs to look good as well. So I would, in my opinion, not do it for this scene, because the effects that you're trying to make for the video presentation, they need to look really good, and you're not gonna get that much out of like doing them really well either, honestly. Like it's not really elevating it to like the next level, right? Skip it. Yeah. As soon as I mentioned the water, you were like so done. Oh. Podcast. It's almost like you need a podcast. Oh, I got so scared there, Sia. No, not the podcast. 4 hours? Yeah, I think three and a half, or like 4 hours or something like that. That's probably the longest one that I've done. Okay. Yo, let's have a look. For feedback, I was wondering if you had any thoughts generally on things that I can improve before calling it finished. I think for this one, I think it's sort of like we talked about last time. Just see if there's like quick wins that you can do. But that's about it. You know, like, and with quick wins, what I'm talking about is this stuff, right? Like we talked about it last time, and I think you did a good job here of just elevating what's already there and making it like more personal, right? So like doing it in shots like this is really good. So more personality. And I would also look into like post-processing. What I mean by that is just taking it into like Photoshop, right? And just have fun. What I mean by that is like, oh, just playing around with like the colors and like the colors, maybe some of the lenses, play around with like a vignette, play around with like different color variations, like see if you can like find an interesting way of like adding more color complexity into the whole thing, right? I think that's the way that I would look at it for this one. There's also some other feedback coming in from Mario as well. Mario is adding like his 2 cents as well. Appreciate that, Mario. Yeah, but that's what I would focus on. Like, I feel like getting more personality, playing around with the post-processing, elevate the presentation. And what I mean by that is maybe there's something that you can do to like, instead of just having like these high resolution screenshots, right? Maybe you can elevate it to like a broader story, right? I'm gonna give you like a silly example, but it kind of gives you like an idea of what that could be. Let's imagine that this is like, we're living in the modern age, and this is like a news article that's doing like an exposition on like the oldest surviving like repair shop in place X, right? And then you can make like a story about the scene that kind of elevates it to like a new position, right? You can do that in multiple different ways. You can have it with like an actual physical newspaper. You can do that with a specific font. You can do that with like a whole bunch of things. And like, yeah, just like elevate it to like the next level, right? That could maybe play into like what Mario is saying, that if you are looking for like a focal point, you could honestly go back in time, or take like a modern newspaper, whatever you want to do. Get like a newspaper front page, make that into a texture, replace the front page image with like your scene, but like maybe like a different shot, right? So that it's not like the exact shots that we're seeing below it. And then just make it into like a news article about like the scene itself. And then place that like newsletter or like front page news onto like the green cabinet down here, right? So it's kind of like this place has had an interview about it done, and you're kind of using that as like a place to highlight what's going on in the story, right? And you elevate it to like the next level. I'm just giving you the example of like a newspaper. You can do whatever you want with that idea, and you can really make it yours, right? Because you could do so much cool things. Like you could, like what I'm imagining as well, like another idea is that I'm imagining like you have a photo wall with like your grandparents or something like that. It doesn't have to be your grandparents, right? But I'm imagining like a picture wall with a focal point. That's what Mario was saying. But like I'm imagining like a wall of pictures, and you have like the family portraits and all that kind of stuff. And then maybe you could like Photoshop like, I don't know, someone into this image, and it's like part of that wall. And then you kind of have this like little snippet of like the main image could be that one, and then we're transported into that scene. I don't know. Something to play around with. If that is too much, and if you're just like, oh my god, I'm out of ideas, I just want to get done with this scene, that's fine too, right? Just some ideas there. So maybe this is like plus minus like quick wins if we're focusing on that. Depends on how broad you want to go. Yeah. Hello 16. Yeah. The detail and like the variation and just like the attention to detail, right? Like it's really, really well done. It really comes alive in like these detail shots as well. Just really, really well used. Yeah. Great stuff, Joe. This is awesome. Next one up. Zaim. We're finally here. Hey, hope you're all doing fine. I made some changes to my scene based on the feedback I got last week. Here's the updates. Let me zoom in for all of y'all. Oh, this is the section that looks most like the concept, if I can remember correctly. What am I doing? Let's see. Kind of skipping through like all the updates. Cool. So as for the story part of the scene, I'm still working on it, but any tips on how to make the scene tell a story would help. Did we talk about that last time? Not really. Okay. So we're gonna dive into that a little bit. Are there any improvements that you would suggest to really bring the scene to life? Are these shot angles interesting enough? So the reason why I wanted you to focus on the scene, right? So we're gonna start out with that in the notes. Is first we're gonna talk about like story a little bit, and then second we'll focus on really bring the scene to life. That's basically the same thing that we're gonna talk about, and then all the angles, right? The reason why I wanted you to focus on the story is because we have a very broad approach now. So like we have the whole place, and like it is built out as like a big city, but this big city doesn't have a lot to support itself in terms of like what the people are doing and what the functionality is of all the individual buildings in it, right? So this is a very common thing where like myself as well, we get so carried away about like building like an entire thing that we don't think about like how the thing that we're building actually functions, right? And how the people function within it. So if we wanted to tell a story, I would start with asking yourself like a bunch of questions like so if we focus on the people, right? Like who lives here? What do they do? How do they get water? How do they get food? Right? So let's make it a little bit more descriptive. Who are they? What do they do? How do they get food? How do they get water? How do they basically survive? Right? Like, how do they do all that stuff? And like, what are they known for? Right? Like, what else do they do outside of it? Because we have the base fundamentals now, right? We have the actual place, but I want to see what the building's functionality is and like what the people are doing within it, right? I think last time we kind of just dipped our toes into that water, but like let's say for example, what is a good example actually? So this building kind of looks like a temple to me. Right? Like it has like the banners, it kind of feels religious, it kind of has like, it's the biggest building as well, so it kind of has like a decent amount of like grandeur to it. So we could then turn that into a temple, and then we could play out the same game, right? Like what kind of religion are they from? Like, what is the purpose of that religion? How embedded is that religion into like the scene? Right? Like, how important is that? And since it is a big building, I'm gonna say that it's like pretty important. Right? So we kind of, and this is my take on it, right? You can do like your own thing, but this is my take on it. So now that we have, okay, we assigned the biggest building to like being like a temple, right? So we kind of know that there's going to be like a religious spin on it already. So that means that in this case, like I'm thinking like, okay, so we have like a common religion. This is gonna be like sort of like the core fundamental of like what these people are. So that means that I need to have like a logo for that religion, and that this is probably going to be reflected on a lot of the other buildings as well, so that we can start tying them together as being part of a religion, right? So I'm thinking about like common colors, common symbolism, right? So like the symbols are going to be like pretty similar, and that may give us like, and I'm going like pretty deep over here, but that could give us like an indication of like what their language is as well, to a certain degree. We don't need to flesh that out, but like it could give some interesting hints. But you can see that like for us to go like really deep, I just took like one building, and then we're trying to approach it from like a religious perspective on this individual building by itself, and that is going to give us like something to work with, because now I can think about like, okay, their purpose is maybe this is the only place where they get water, right? Just making something up. The temple is like basically because it's so embedded with this religious like the religion is such a big part of this entire society, that this is basically the place where they also go for like food and drinks and all that kind of stuff, and it's very run by the religion, right? So then we can kind of play into that with like, oh, we see like water basins here, right? So we have like water basins, maybe there's doors open up as well. You can kind of see like lots of seating inside of it too. You kind of have like an amphitheater kind of set up. And then we need to give like some of this stuff, like some of this clutter, also more meaning, right? Because now this is just generic. But how is this generic stuff going to support like the story that I've set up here? So if it's going to be like a temple, like that is handing out food and drinks, like what are they doing, right? Like what are they handing out? So instead, we could potentially make that into like, I don't know, like bags of food, right? That like this is a transport shipment that came in, and we give it like a specific place here. But you don't want to make it too scattered, because then we're adding chaos to the whole thing, right? And chaos kind of feels like disorganization, and that can read as like a very chaotic scene, right? So we kind of need to think about it in a way where like I'm giving specific areas a specific person, a specific purpose. So this little area here, that's going to be like a temporary storage depot, right? I'm removing all this stuff because that doesn't work anymore. And then we can potentially turn it into something else. So maybe this could be like, I don't know, a marketplace, right? Where we have like one of those market stalls, and we're kind of looking out from like the market stall that's selling like a bunch of stuff. I don't know. That's where you kind of have to come in, and you need to look at the entire space and give it purpose through asking a bunch of questions, right? Because now the space itself is hollow. Like there's nothing happening there yet. You have to decide for yourself, like who these people are, what do they do, and how you can turn that into like a really nice narrative that can tie like everything together, right? Yeah. Ideally, you should also... What we're trying to do is not the ideal situation, right? Like ideally, like you should have the design of the buildings kind of follow the story. But what we're trying to do now is we're trying to like push a story into like the design of the buildings, which is never really working great because now we're so restrictive. We're so restricted in like what we can do with the buildings, right? But it doesn't mean that we can't do anything. We just have to be more picky and more purposeful about what we do with it. So you could have the temple, right? And then let's see. Again, because in my vision, right, you kind of have the temple, which kind of works in our favor because it's also the highest point. Which, look at churches, right? That's why they're so tall. Like, it kind of works within like the religious aspect of all things. And then we just have to like figure out what like all the other buildings are going to be if we want to show them off, and how we're going to show them off then, right? Because let's say that is like the common house, right? Or like the common building for like their religion. This could almost be like the priest tower, right? So this is where the priest lives. This is where the, I don't know, supporting people live, right? There's specific names for it, but the people that support the religion. And then you kind of have like other buildings that you have to figure out like what their purpose is, right? Like, how do they all tie together? In your case, like, I would do this like on paper, or like just do it like a paint over or something like that, and pick one building that you're gonna do this visually with and make like 3D for, right? So, for example, that's why I'm picking on this shot, because it's a little bit more blocked off. It's a little bit more, yeah, it's a little bit more blocked off. It's going to be easier to do something that feels fleshed out because we don't have to do so much of it, right? So, yeah. So that's why I'm coming up with like the idea of like, let's say a marketplace. We have like the front of the stall here. Let's see. Front of the stall. So we have like stall supports. Cool. There's like a bunch of stuff that they're selling. Right, cool. So I'm kind of imagining that we're like in the middle of these market stalls. And then you can do the same thing over here as well. Right, so let's do like a market stall. And they sell like a whole bunch of stuff too. And what I'm doing at the same time is I'm trying to block off like a lot of the scene with like the assets that I'm making, right? So we're seeing less and less of like the background as I'm doing this. So we're making it more filled out. And then you could kind of have like a little stall here that is more for like the supply. Remember, this is supposed to be the supply place for this place, right? So you probably want to build it out a little bit as well. So this little alleyway or this little street kind of turns into like their marketplace that is usually like surrounded like around the church, right? Where you have like the open square and you have like Sunday markets, all that kind of stuff. Oh, I keep trapping the delete button. Yeah, just trying to think about the space and like how you add story into it. Right, and you have to decide like what your story is, right? Yeah. Let's see, thematics are powerful. Yes. I missed some props in this amazing environment. Yeah, exactly. So that's why we're trying to kind of like flesh it out here, right? And then, you know, like what I'm trying to do at the same time is I'm trying to solve like creative issues as well, right? So I just realized, maybe this side looks a bit boring. What if we just have like, I don't know, like some of these like large banners come down from like the actual temple and just obscure some of that stuff for us, right? Just make this place like feel a bit more interesting. And then we can kind of tie that in with like the market because they're trying to create shade for the market as well, right? And it kind of works because we have like a lot of banners up here already, right? So, yeah. I know this is like very broad, but I would honestly pick one. This is going to be difficult because you're going to show off like all the rest of the scenes as well. But I would say you pick like a couple of screenshots and then focus on one where you're going to show like all the details, right? So like the one that you have here, go fully detailed and work that one out. And then from the assets that you've created on that one, then you can build out some of the other spaces as well. Yeah. So, yeah. That's the way what I would do it. So, that means focus on the detail street first with a story, and then use all the stuff that you created for that to then detail some of the other areas as well, if you can. But the more that you show off, the more that I expect to see in the same sort of state that like this screenshot is going to be. Right? So you have to be very picky with the amount of stuff that you show off because you are going to set the expectation really high. Yeah. So that kind of leads you to like the next question, right? Like the second question was, how would you suggest like really bring the scene to life? That's basically all we just talked about. And then, are these shots and angles interesting enough? That is for you to decide for yourself, right? Currently, no. But if you do one detailed shot here, and then you are smart with the way that you use those assets in like the rest of the scene, you can make them more detailed, right? You just have to be like very picky with the way that you show this off. Because for example, this guy here, this is the same street that we're going to detail up. So this is going to be good. We're basically doing the same scene, but we're doing it from like a different perspective, right? The only thing that we then have to focus on, because I mean, remember, like we're going to have like some banners hanging over this place. So this place is going to look like pretty interesting and pretty detailed, right? And there's going to be lots of detail down here. But that also means that we now have to pay extra attention to like the rocks that we have here, right? We need to like make them look like really organic, like hilly looking rocks with like rocks in the distance and like rocks in the background. And yeah, we have to take care of like the whole scene. So for every scene that you do that shows you like a big perspective, I'm expecting it to be taken up to like the same level. Hi sir, does a micro environment help you to get a position as an environment artist as a beginner? Yep. The only thing that you need to care about is quality. The size of a scene doesn't matter. Because that's the horrible truth about this, right? Like, this is... I know you put in a lot of work. And I really know that, right? But like, from like a storytelling and environment art perspective, this is still the beginning. I don't want to make that like sound like it's very demotivating or something like that. But what we look for is depth rather than width, right? Like we don't want to see like something that is just the foundation of a city. We want to see a city that is like populated by people and has stories going on, all that kind of stuff, right? That's what we really look for. Just without the people in it. Nepal has a lot of those stringers with little banner flags. Could fit the motive. Yeah. Those peace banners, right? I think they're made to signify peace, I think. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. Happy to help. I mean, don't let all this demotivate you, right? The good thing about this is whenever you're making an environment, you get to decide like how much you're gonna show, right? So what I would do, focus on the one single image, try to make that as good as you can, and then if you still have the motivation or the energy to do like to set dress like the rest of the scene, do that. But I would honestly, if you nail the story and you nail the visuals in this one, I would rather see one image than 6 of these images that are not filled out at the moment. So keep that in mind, right? You have control over how your work is going to be perceived, right? Yeah. Thank you for posting your work, Seem. I hope that was helpful. I know that sometimes, like, I try to keep it like pretty matter of fact. The purpose here is not to demotivate you, right? You have full control and you can still decide like what you want to do. With this, you just have to like infuse a story in it. And that's it. Because the changes that you made, we didn't even talk about that. Like the changes that you made, they're really good. I like this shot now way more than it was before. We're getting some interesting contrast in the lighting, and like we're getting like separation of colors. Like you're doing a really good job. But like this is the most important stuff. We'll see. Thank you so much for posting your work. Keep it up, man. And if you have any more questions, always feel free to reach out to me. Thanks for the feedback. It was really helpful. We'll definitely work on it. That's awesome. Best of luck, man. Next one. Round 1. We are here. Oh, yeah. And thanks, Mario, for all the feedback. Luke is saying, this project feels massive, almost like a full environment. With a scene like this, is it better to focus on a few specific renders or to build out the environment like a level? Oh, no, few specific renders. I've seen this a couple of times where people really want to make like an actual playable level and have the ability to run through it and all that kind of stuff. I would not recommend that. As an environment artist, like we're most preoccupied with like making beautiful pictures first before making something that is like completely playable and all that kind of stuff, right? So focus on the things that are going to get you a job, which is the art side of things. And like the other stuff, like the level design and like the way that you make all that work, you're going to learn in the industry, because that's usually like a different discipline that's in charge of that, right? Like usually it's level design that takes care of the design and like how the gameplay works and all that kind of stuff, or like how the flow is going to work of the space. So as an environment artist, I would always recommend just make pretty things and tell a story, because that's what you're going to do a lot. One recommendation that I always give, actually, and it's been a while since I brought this up, but is you kind of have to think about your work as in save points, right? So you imagine you're playing a game, and at a certain point you're building towards like a save point, right? So let's say it's Resident Evil, and you can only save in like save spaces, right? That's basically what you're trying to do here as well with your portfolio work. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to get to like your first save point, which is like a single camera, and you try to get that looking as good as you can, because then you know that you have something in your back pocket where if you want to continue on working on the scene towards your next save point, right? Because what often happens is that once you've done that like first image, the first render that you've built nothing else, you just focused on this single camera, that's already so much work that by the time that you get there, that you probably don't want to keep playing and move on to a next scene, right? So That's like what I would recommend as like a way of thinking about it. My turn. Yes, sir. Let's have a look. Andrea saying, such a cool scene. I love the miniature design. Yeah, I gotta say, this is looking fucking awesome. I like it. Such a good job on doing this. I have one image here that is from the previous update, which we're gonna talk about in a little bit. There's a reason why it's there. But let's get some context first. Pretty incredible improvement. Adam is saying that in the chat as well, or like in the Discord chat. Yeah, I agree. Looks fucking awesome. Just a general review of the recent update and identify any areas that need improvement for the final touches. Additionally, suggest a suitable breakdown for this piece. I think, didn't we talk about a breakdown last time? Like the template that I kind of use for doing a breakdown on your portfolio usually just sticks the same. Like if this is like your little ArtStation post, right? Ding, you have your main image, which is like the main render, like your selling point, right? And then you have just like how many detail shots that you want. Let's say you have one main image. Let's say you have 2 detail shots, and then you just go into like the breakdown, right? And the breakdown, I usually keep it like pretty formal, where it's just what we want to see is poly count, wireframe, textures. Am I forgetting one? Textures and UVs. That's all. Or like that's the core template, and then you can turn that template in like whatever you want to do with it, right? Hey, thanks for the sub. Flying on. That is awesome. Thank you so much. So that's like the template that I usually stick by, right? Pretty stereotypical, pretty basic as well. You get to do with that template whatever you want. But that's like the basis of it. And then when it comes to the screenshots, I like all of them. Like they all just have like a very consistent like feel. If there were like a couple of recommendations is you got this guy here. I want to see a little bit more geo on that. Especially because it's a miniature, right? I kind of want to see like a very nice kind of flowy yeah, just like a high detailed, like flowy kind of tissue. You're basically looking to eliminate like these hard edges as much as you can, right? Just make it look like as detailed as you can. So for example, this geo, you can add like way more. It's more for presentation purposes anyway, right? And that's all good. The main reason why I brought this one up though is I would love that we can kind of go back to like 1 week before. Because I feel what is kind of missing in a new one is that everything is more brownish, right? It's more brown / orange. And what we're getting in the old one is we have more blue tones coming in, and it adds to like the color complexity of the whole space. Plus also, look at how nice like the lighting hits. The rim lighting hits like most of the piece here compared to the way that it feels here. Right? This feels so much more nicer. Like you get like this nice like roughness variation in like the metal and the wood. This looks awesome. Like I love the way that the work really like pops because of the light here. So Yeah. Especially with the blues coming in, it just elevates it to like the next level. What you could potentially also do is, I don't know if you're already doing that, but have like a soft fill light. So that you kind of get away with like some of these like harsher shadows and just like push them back just a little bit. And then we're also filling up like some of this area over here with a little bit more lighting. But this has to be like very soft and very subtle, because you also don't want to like do too much, right? That might be something to play around with. But I love the way that this image looks compared to like, I mean, this image still looks good, right? But just like the lighting, it's like so good in this one. Probably my least favorite shot, it's gonna be this guy over here. Just because all of them are like really central, right? You have like a very centralized composition, and this one is just like offset for like not a really good, like, I don't know what the purpose is of like offsetting it in that one single shot. Potentially to get like this stuff in here, but it doesn't add too much, right? So if I were to cut like one image from this series, it would probably be this guy. And then you just have like 4 like really solid images from like multiple angles that are like really well presented. One potential final thing is that this material, I'm not convinced by this material. Compared to like the way that you like did all the rest, looks so good. I'm not sure. Maybe it's like the really fake edge here, where maybe you just have to like add like a little bump or something. There's something about like the base compared to the rest of it that looks a little bit off. But that shot, it was from an image that I found. Yeah, I mean, it just doesn't work because like it's offset for a reason, which I'm normally a fan of, right? Like I like the rule of thirds and like having it like offset and all that kind of stuff. But I feel like you did such a good job of just keeping it like really central in like all the other images that this one just feels like an outlier. That's a nice model. Yeah, it really is. It really, really is. Yeah, dude. Like, honestly, this is really great. I would never have thought that this was gonna be how far we're gonna be progressing in like 1 week. So this is fucking awesome. Like, yeah, you can really be proud of like the progress that you've made, man, because this looks fucking great. I love it. Couple little tweaks here, like with the lighting and like a bit more geo, but like, yeah. That's honestly all to point out. Andrea saying maybe painted fingerprints too on the tissue. Yeah, potentially. Fingerprints, or yeah, maybe have like a couple of like paint splatters droplets on like the mat itself as well. You can kind of have fun and play around with that too. Yes. Yeah, so great stuff, Route 1. This is awesome. Yeah, that's about it from my end. Getting much love in the chat. That is always awesome to see. I like the save point idea. It puts into a lot into context what I've had put together since arriving here. It changes the perspective of I'm building for this camera right now, not a player running through. Yeah, exactly. Because you will get in touch with level design, right? Like you will work closely together with the level design team. But most of that stuff is not your discipline anyway, and you're gonna learn a lot of that stuff on the job. to give you like a little bit of context, right? I never did like any sort of like level design or any sort of like, oh, you can walk through the whole scene before I entered the industry, right? So I learned most of that on the job as well, because it's also so specific to the game you're making stuff. Cool. Let's have a look. Where were we? Moonlight. I think this is going to be a quick one. So questions for Tim. Do you have any good tutorials to make neutral or not neutral light to show the individual props? Oh, there's another question as well up there. Not on the top of my head. Honestly, YouTube, like I know that I've looked at like the same tutorials making a neutrally lit scene in Unreal. There's some good ones. Probably just click on the top link. Like honestly, I used like the same sort of tutorials that were just like freely available on YouTube, like myself as well. Let's see. And there's another question here: how to show this prop properly? You gave advices about it before, but I'm dealing with Unreal and the lights. Do you have any tutorial or resources in order to show props in a good way? Yeah, we actually do. We have like a full tutorial about it from Angelo Tiflas. It's available on our YouTube channel. That is specifically about like how to present props and how to set up lighting and all that kind of stuff. Like he's doing a pretty good job. It's not a neutral scene, but it is meant for like prop presentations. So you can find that on our YouTube channel. So yeah, nothing really to note here. I think if you wanted to present something like this, I would honestly try something like very simple with just having like a colorful plane underneath it, or maybe have it on like a little pillow. Like a little pillow could be cute, but that means more work, right? If you wanted to go for something simple, just having like a plane where you just paint the edges out, it doesn't have to be too fancy, right? I would say have a look at like how other people are presenting things, right? And there's a bunch of people making like really cool, like stylized art. So yeah, I'm sure you're going to find something there. Yeah, best of luck, Moonlight. Best of luck. Keep up the updates. Next one up, Tom L. I think Tom was asking very specific things. I'm only looking for some final thoughts. Are there any glaring problems? We're going to be specifically focusing on like glaring problems, which I had a little bit of a sneak peek before. And I don't think there are going to be glaring problems. I mean, let's see. Doo-doo-doo. I don't know. Let me see. Was I still on the plan to do like particles? I'm pretty sure that we... Oh, yeah. I think I shared you like last week, right? Like some fire particle effects. Definitely gonna need those. Especially here, because you have like flames coming up from like the bottom of it, where the lighting is probably gonna be different because of it. It's probably gonna be like more condensed to like shooting out this way rather than lighting up like the entire scene, right? I mean, you can choose however you want to do that. But like some VFX, that's the main thing that's missing, especially because you like call it out with like torches, right? So I want to see some fire there. Oh, so nice the way that the light hits that. So good. Yeah, I would say no glaring issues. If that was the specific request, yeah, nothing really that stands out as like, oh my god, fix that immediately. I know that we've been a pain in the ass with like these rubble piles, but this is, we're not going to focus on it now, but this is definitely the right direction. Like this is kind of what I was talking about. Yeah. It's honestly, it's super quick, right? Like this sort of stuff, just shove that into like the pillars and kind of have that at like the edges. And that's going to be like so nice to see. Because you kind of want to, what you kind of want to do, and this is sort of what Adam said before, right? Is that you have this, what happened here? A pillar broke. Then I'm expecting like, okay, pillar fell down and there's like a bunch of fucking debris down here, right? But I'm imagining like these rubble piles to be like build up against like the more solid shapes. So you kind of have like all this like build up. Yeah. So I didn't want to go too deep into that. So thank you for showing your work, Tom. And I like the vibes, like very foggy, very misty, looking really nice. Yeah. Cool shit. I like it. Next one up, we got Zoe Brown. I saw Zoe Brown. Happy to see you. I think you might be new in the chat. Let's have a look. Oh, I can't see because I'm in streamer mode. Ugh. But I can't remember seeing your name before, so happy to have you. Welcome, welcome. Let's actually have a look. So I have decided to take on a quite big project, and I've built this monastery that I recently visited in Cyprus, but to add a story, I've decided to make it look abandoned. Oh, okay. Also, we got some ivy going on. That is cool. Okay. This will be my first ever full environment. I have done the blockout so far, and any devices on how to go about separating pieces, modeling, and texturing is very welcome. I'm all ears. Okay. Yeah, that's me. I'm new. Awesome. Okay. So this is a very ambitious project to do at this scale, right? But we're going to talk about like how we can break this up, right? So like at least try to make it as easy as we can. So one of the main concepts for an environment like this is we want to focus on reuse as much as possible. So what that means is we can reuse on an asset basis, right? With our models. We can reuse on a texture basis. And we can reuse on a material basis as well. So with assets, that is oftentimes referred to as modularity or like a modular kit, which are basically, you can think about them as like Lego, right? Like we're just making like digital Lego where we can just like, for example, we only need to make like one of these arches because then I can just like reuse that arch and just like paste it over here as well, right? The only thing that we need to keep in mind is that they kind of have like the same dimensions. Right, but we can just basically just duplicate this entire section if we wanted to. And then we can just duplicate it over here and then duplicate it over here as well. Right, so that's like the core idea that we need to look for those opportunities as much as we can. So if we continue that train of thought, like we can do the same thing here where we have like a fence that is a straight section. We can then use that same kind of fence like over here, over here, over here. Bunk, bunk, bunk. So we only need to build this like one time and then we can just use that on like all these guys as well. I'm gonna take like a different color now. So that's like the basic concept behind it. Where are my swatches? There they are. Okay, so what we're gonna do now is, and this is an exercise that you actually could be doing yourself as well, and I would recommend you to do that too. So if we pick like a different color, like green, I'm gonna say, okay, I need one of these guys. Cool. I also need like one of these guys, and see that I'm always like splitting it in the middle of the pillar, because that means that I can just easily just like slot them into each other, right? Right, so that's like one piece, two pieces, We got this guy, which is like 3 pieces. You need to make these ones separately because they like are at an angle. So we kind of have to do them separately. We are probably also going to make like a pillar, right? So that we can use like this pillar just all over the place. And then you kind of have like a wall here as well, which you kind of could cut up in the same way. Depending on what's on this wall here, but you could make that a singular asset too. Let's see. This is going to be in the background, so that gives us like more flexibility. Let's see. Then for the rest of it, I would honestly see that you can like split this one up, right? So this is going to just be like a blank wall. And we can then use that blank wall over here again, right? So in this way, you can kind of see that like we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pieces. And that allows us to construct like the majority of the scene already, right? And then it just becomes a choice, like how do we deal with like the stuff that we can't really make in this fashion, right? So if we pick like a different color again, say blue this time. What I'm looking at now with the blue color is, okay, blue is going to be unique. Right? So those are like the assets that I'm going to make by myself because, but like in a ideally like a high to low poly kind of workflow, because that gives us like the most straightforward result and the most bang for our buck as well. So in this scene, there's honestly only one thing that I would make in this fashion, and that's just the well, right? So pretty straightforward on that front. And then for the rest of the things that are like kind of like, what would you call it? Like kind of like the leftovers, right? Let me just add like a roof here as well, because you can do that with like a modular kit too. So that means that the green stuff is modular. And then the rest of the things that we have in the background, for example, those buildings. Well, you could possibly get away with a trim sheet. Yeah, for sure. You can also just slap some tilables on it too and just like dress it up that way. It just depends like what you want to showcase with a scene like this, right? I think if you have like a dedicated scene like this, which is like laid out like this at the moment, you could actually showcase like all the things that you need to showcase with like a single project. And then for the buildings in the back, we're going to approach them like a little bit differently because they're only used like once, really. The way that we're going to approach those is we're just going to like build them out of bitables and potentially a trim sheet as well. Don't really have time to go into like what that all means right now, right? But feel free to look all these terms up and you're going to find like lots of good resources, including our YouTube channel has like a bunch of them too. But what that means is that like a trim sheet is basically like a reusable texture that we can like reuse between like multiple things. So you could even use this trim sheet to then build up like your modular kit as well. So these walls, these building pieces, these architectural pieces, you could all build with like the trim sheet that you're going to make for the rest of it. Yeah, that would be my broad approach. Do this exercise for yourself. Because I am not too sure like what your skill level is coming in, right? Okay, so I aim to learn about trim sheets and tilables in this project because I've never done it before, but I find it a bit daunting where to start. It is also a really big project. right? If you're doing like a project like this for the first time, it is really daunting because you're taking on like a massive scene at this point, right? In general, what you want to do with a trim sheet is we have like a whole bunch of like documentation and like workshops on top of it, right? But in the short gist of it is that you are making like a texture that is built out of strips, right? So that you can lay out like everything on that strip texture. Really short form of it. But if this is the first product that you're trying to learn trim sheets with, is yeah, it is going to be quite daunting. If your skill level, like you're saying, is already, you've done environments from packs and things. I'm pretty advanced in modeling, okay, but never done like much of an environment completely on my own before. What you could do, and it's just totally up to you, is you could start out with like a test item, right? Like you could take one of these arches, for example, and build a trim sheet for that arch and just focus on like getting to understand like how you build a trim sheet and how you can use a trim sheet, and then you can expand on that knowledge afterwards, right? This is a very common tactic in the games industry as well, where we call it like benchmarking, right? It's more in terms of quality, but you can do the same thing in terms of skills as well. Where benchmarking is this practice of like, oh, we don't know what we're getting into yet, so we're gonna take this small slice of this entire environment and we're gonna see if that's like a feasible way of building it to that quality that we have in our head. And if it works, like we've already solved like all the technical difficulties that we had along the way, and then we know that we can kind of scale it up to the rest of the team, right? And then they also have an example to look at too. So you could approach it in that way. Also, like, you're a member of our community, right? So there's a PDF that you can download that has like 250 pages of like tips. There's a bunch of tips on how to approach trim sheets, how to set up like different workflows with like titleables, and also how to break down like concepts like this as well. So I would recommend reading those too. But yeah, I would say best of luck. Best of luck doing this ambitious project, and I'm excited to see where it's gonna go, Zoe. So best of luck. Capnut is saying, I'm not sure if it was said already, but I try to find your camera position and position early. I'm gonna shrink that down to a single position. So I think this is why I love this single camera shot, because stick to this shot and make it real simple. Don't do additional shots. Don't try to make it like a playable environment. Just focus on this single camera. It's gonna help you a lot. So thanks for bringing that up, Capnut. Appreciate the tip. Yeah, and again, welcome to the community. Happy to have you here. Cube. Last two for the day. Next one is Will, and then we have Swan sweating in the back. Sorry to keep you waiting for this entire time, Swan. Just fucking sweating in the back, stressing out. Cool. For Wednesday, could you check if I'm heading in the right direction based on your advice last time, especially with the story and the lighting? I think so. Like, I feel like cutting out like the section that you have in the back, like a section, like especially cutting out like the TV screen, right, works so good because now this becomes like a non-factor. Whereas this section over here definitely stands out as being like the most attractive in the entire image. So yeah, I think you nailed it. I would say looking good, buddy. Looking good. Keep it up. Not too much more to add there. Progress. Gonna be cool to see. Yeah, good stuff, man. Evening, working late, I see. Yeah, nearly at the end though. Had some really good discussions that we can't skip on, so let's see. Swan is working on Maw of the Abyss. Ooh, okay. This is my first environment piece, and I wanted to get some feedback on the lighting and the composition. A bit of context. So the story I want to convey is a discovery of an ancient treasure sitting amongst the remains and ruins of an old civilization. Okay. Only to realize the very being that caused the destruction is laying beneath your feet. Oh, okay, yeah. So we're in like the mouth of a, what do they call, like devilfish, right? Oh no, anglerfish, right? Has new pictures. It's too late, man. It's too late. I compiled these pictures before the stream. Oh, how dare you drop new pictures in here? Let's see. I'll grab them really quick. I'll make an exception, okay? Make an exception. It's good that it's only 2 images. Sorry, Tim. No worries, no worries. Cool. Let's put them side by side instead. Bonk. All right. So, composition and lighting feedback, right? Feeling wise, I want to convey a scene that is alluring, but also an undertone of dread and danger. Could you also leave me towards the end? Oh. Oh yeah, sure. I'll leave you towards the end. This was all pre-planned, man. Yeah. For sure. Let's see. So, composition and lighting. I like the idea behind it. I really do. It's just the core thematic, I feel like it needs to be worked out a little bit more, right? Like, how do you showcase like a fallen civilization? And make it look like really interesting. I think one of those stereotypical things when I hear that is like I hear the story of Atlantis, right? And Atlantis has like, it's very much based on, well, at least in my mind, it's very much based on like Roman architecture, right? With like very recognizable like architectural pillars and features, right? So that's maybe something that you could dive into. Because right now we have rocks here, but the rocks almost blend in with like the architectural pieces where you want to hint at like this civilization that kind of collapsed, right? So I would honestly like feature the rocks like less prominently and focus more on just like these like almost like stereotypical like broken pillars. Then maybe you could have like another one over here as well. You know, when they have like all the ribs on them, it makes them like really recognizable. But you're kind of playing with those features instead. Because a lot of what we try to do as like an environment artist is, and especially if you're coming up with your own designs, right, which is really difficult, is that you wanna be able to ground those designs and ideas in something that is really recognizable for people, right? So tapping into something like Atlantis, and then just putting your like, I don't know, like your own. There's a word that I'm looking for, but like dreadful spin on it, or like your own like monstrous spin. So it's like, yeah, it's Atlantis, but it's like, it's almost like with like a monstrous twist, right? Hello, Omar. Thank you for that question. If you become a member, you can submit your work, and then I do reviews on like a weekly basis. So yeah, going back to this, like you wanna tap into like the believability of something, and for that we need to tap into um like almost like common knowledge, right? Or like common visuals. And that's how we make something grounded, right? That's, for example, why a lot of aliens are like humanoids as well, right? Because the humanoid shape is something that's very recognizable to us. And we can immediately tell, like, oh, they're like the same shape, but they have like a giant head. That's what makes them weird, right? So it's like a way of like grounding like designs in reality in that way. But yeah, once you have these columns, I would then play on yeah, maybe less of these like just random rocks in the back, right? To really separate like the pillars and the architectural pieces from the rest of the scene. Right? And then whatever's going to be here in the focal point, I almost want to, you kind of need to encapsulate what you're trying to tell, right? So your story is that you want to convey like a great discovery of an ancient treasure sitting amongst the remnants and the ruins of an old civilization, right? I would almost get like a statue or something like that. And the reason why I'm saying getting like a statue is because like you don't want to necessarily make a statue yourself. But I think there's actually museums online where you can download like 3D models and all that stuff as well. So that might be worth looking into. And then what you can do is you can just cut that statue up, and you could almost make the statue hollow and have like lots of gold like spilling out of it or something like that, right? Where you could indicate that like, oh, people found that like the statues were filled with like golden coins, but once they revealed that, like it awoke the beast, and now is the end of the civilization, right? Because what is happening here, again, it has to do with the believability of things, right? Like the chest, I get, like I can recognize the chest 100%. I just don't know what the thing is that's on the chest. Right? So we almost, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to tap into something that is super recognizable. Again, like I'm going to like an Atlantis version, right? So I'm taking like a statue, where like a sunken statue with like lots of moss and barnacles and all that stuff growing on it, but like it's broken apart and like it's like down the middle or something like that, and like you can tell that the inside is hollow and like lots of gold just like poured out of it, right? There's probably more elegant ways, or more innovative ways, but you can decide that for yourself, right? What you want to do with it. Looking to scan the world. It's a bank of free shared museum pieces and statues. That is awesome. I need to write that down for myself as well. Be fun to play around with. And a world. It's an octopus. Yeah. Okay. So. Okay. Let's say it's an octopus, right? It is a weird looking octopus. Let's say it's an octopus. What does that have to do with the story, though? Right? Like, what I would be more interested in is that you almost see, because again, we're thinking about the story, right? Where like, the discovery of a great ancient treasure sitting amongst the remnants. So we're kind of playing with this idea that like, oh, they discovered this treasure, and then like this bad stuff fell upon them, right? So instead of doing like an octopus, I would honestly just have like, I don't know, like fucking skull sitting here, right? And just have like, I almost want to see like people like reaching towards like the treasure, but like in skeletal form, right? Where you can kind of see that it's like people were trying to reach upon it, and like someone managed to like open the chest, but like no one really managed to grab anything. And what could be interesting, now that I think of it, is imagine if you have like a skeletal hand, like a skeletal hand, just like fucking 2 bones over here, like propping open like the chest. And this chest, like you get a sneak peek inside of it. But the inside is fucking filled with gold, right? So we have this golden shine coming outside of it, which has 2 purposes, right? It's telling the story and it's supporting the story of like, oh, this is a massive treasure. But it also supports the story in a way where it works with like pulling the focal point more towards like the chest itself, right? And then put like a couple of fake lights around it. It'd be really interesting to really play with that. But I would, I would definitely like exaggerate the theme of like the whole thing to make it more exaggerated and like bigger than real life, right? That's what I would do. So that is misspelled, but I'm just gonna move on. You want to exaggerate the thematic, which I love this for it, right? Like, this is good. I love that. Make that a little bit more subtle, and we're on to a winner. I think this is great. I love this like whole setup where you have like the teeth in the background. That is great. I want to keep that. I want to put it a little bit more subtle, so that we're almost, and like you're trying to do this stuff yourself as well. I can see that, right? Like, I want us to focus on this first, and then once we start looking around to see what the actual story behind it is, then I'm seeing, oh shit, this is not just like any sort of light. This is like an anglerfish. So yeah, that's the way you wanna kind of build it up. I'm thinking about like making it really subtle, right? So if we're gonna do this, is it burn? Yeah, it is burn. Every fucking time. Let's see. Gonna make it a bit bigger. What I almost want to see is like we're really... Oh fuck. Forgot to... Dink. Okay. Go back into it. It's almost like you want to diminish the background, so where you only slightly see the silhouettes. And you like make it like really mysterious and dreadful, right? You probably want to keep like the light on the actual rod itself. We're gonna bring back some of that in a bit. Yeah, we're just really pushing this, right? We're making it more... We're making it clear, like, what we want to put the focus on. And then I think... we kind of want to... bring it, like, back a little bit. But we have to be, like, way more subtle with it than, like, so upfront. I think also what's going to happen is that once you have, like, a nice, like, emissive texture on the end of it, with, like... It's not just going to be, like, a floating tip. It's going to have, like, a little bit of texture on it itself as well. That's going to look awesome. But yeah, that's what I would say. Like, play into like the architectural stereotypes, right? If you think about like ruined civilizations, what do you think about, right? Play into those thematics and then exaggerate the thematic itself, right? Where you're really just pushing like the story that you're trying to tell. That's what I would focus on. Yeah, I hope that was helpful, Swan. Also, really appreciate you posting your work. Thank you so much for putting your work out there. This is honestly, like I said in the beginning, I like the thematic that's going on, right? If you like finesse or like push a little bit more on like the chest idea and how you work that thematic out, this core idea is going to really flourish, right? I was looking to stay away from like Greek architecture, but it's more but I'll look into more of the other ones first. Well, it depends on like why you want to, like you have to ask the question of like why you wanted to stay away, right? The only reason why I bring it up is because it is iconic, right? And in this sort of sense, like what you're trying to set up, it is more about the idea behind what you're trying to do rather than the actual architecture that is going to convey that idea to the viewers, right? I'm not saying that you shouldn't like look into other options, like you can. Like you could let's see, you could also just like stay away from architecture by itself and kind of have it as like a very simple indication, right? So that you could kind of make it seem like there was like a house or something like that. Maybe play with like the silhouette of a house. That could also be interesting. I'm almost imagining that there is like a chest in a house and you can kind of play with like the same stuff that we're playing with like a golden glow coming from outside the house. It would also exacerbate like the themes of like, hey, there is safety here. This is a house. This was someone's house at some point. And then you still have like the massive anglerfish teeth behind it, right? So there's so many ways on executing on that like thematic and the motifs that there's so many options. I'm sure that you're going to find something to play around with. Yeah. Appreciate you sharing your work, man. That's awesome. And best of luck. Hudson is saying good morning. Hello, Hudson. How are you doing? My advice, explore different cultures, myths related to the ocean, usually open doors to ideas of culture and design. Yeah. That's always a great idea. The thing there is that it always comes back to what is recognizable for people, right? So I'll give you like a really stupid example, but there's like people that probably like use rocks to make like huts out of, right? I mean, not probably, like people actually did that. But like that is not necessarily like the best way to convey like the idea that we're running with here, right? So there's always this like balance of like we need to make it like recognizable for people so that they can get the idea, but then also because we're artists, we want to make it unique and we want to make it our own as well, right? So there's like this constant struggle of like you can make something really unique but then make it like not recognizable and not resonate with people. That's also not what we want, right? But yeah, I completely agree with the idea though. Like there's so many like cultural and like civilizational like things that we have barely tapped into in just like the collective of the human race, right? Like there's so many like lost cultures that it could be also just like pretty cool to just put your own spin on it as well. Any tips on texturing? No, not really. Honestly, that's a pretty broad question, right? And I'm gonna have to dip out in a little bit. I was thinking about... Oh, I'll give you some recommendations. The ArtStation course on texturing, I think it's still free, right? If I'm not mistaken. Damn it, I forgot his name. But yeah, on ArtStation, there's a great course on texturing props. Like, honestly, if there was one recommendation that I would give, that's the one. And it's probably going to be easy to find as well. It's, is it like a wrench or like a screwdriver or something like that? It's been a while. Very simple prop that's just focused on texturing. That's probably the best resource out there. That would be my recommendation. But yeah, as I said, I'm not going to make it too much longer. I'm just going to say I appreciate you all being here. I loved the conversation. Over 3-hour stream. How do you do that, Tim? Oh, hold on. It's 2 hours and 55 minutes. We're not at a 3-hour mark yet. No, this was pretty fun though. Pretty fun. I love the conversation that we had in the middle as well, which probably lasted like half an hour or something like that. It was really, really interesting. Yeah, I appreciate you all being here. If you want to get your work critiqued as well, you can do that like every week. I'm here every week, so you just can do that by becoming a member and then basically just tagging your work in our Discord. So I appreciate it a lot. And thank you so much for subscribing as well, Brian. Like, that is awesome. Happy to have you. But yeah, that's it. Thanks so much for all the subscribers as well. Oh, thank you so much, Hudson. That is awesome. And then I'll see you, yeah, next week. Have a good week, everybody. Bye-bye.